Wayfair's Labor Day clearance is on now. Right now at Wayfair, you can get up to 70% off everything home. Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 7th at wayfair.ca.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Breaking news. Considered. The Elias Macko Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Akil Aline here, filling in for Elias Mackos on the Elias Mackos Show. We just heard the press conference with Federal Minister of Finance and National Revenue, François-Philippe Champagne, announcing the federal government's response to the trade war coming from south of the border. So, how are employers here at home, how are employers, particularly here in Quebec, reacting to this whole situation? Trade negotiations, of course, have been suspended. We're now seeing the Carney government announcing how it's going to clap back at the United States government. For companies here in Quebec, as well as across Canada, that means a whole lot of uncertainty. So for Quebec companies in particular, that can make it hard to plan ahead, especially for any businesses that depend heavily on selling to the American market. And now with U.S. tariffs taking an effect on Canadian products, the Conseil du Patronat du Québec, which represents employers in the province, is saying this is a major setback. But at the same time, it says Canada was right not to accept a bad deal just for the sake of having a deal. So what does that actually mean for Quebec businesses? Here to shed some light on that with me is Michelle Yambias Meunier, President and CEO of the Quebec Employers Council, the Conseil du Patronat. Madame Meunier, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So in a brief, what does this mean? What does not having a deal with the states actually mean for Quebec businesses?
Well, you said it in your introduction. It's a major setback, and it's the scenario we least wanted to see. But there is a broad consensus amongst the business community that this was the right decision to make, given the last-minute demands from the U.S. But we were hoping for predictability because this uncertain context has been going on for more than 18 months now. And businesses in Quebec and across Canada are lacking certainty. And it's very hard in that context to make investments, to take business decisions, and to keep all of the employees working.
And so what kinds of measures would you like to see governments in Canada, including here in Quebec, take to offer assistance to the businesses that are hit the hardest?
Well, first of all, we need to recognize the agility that the government of Quebec and now the federal government they just announced a couple of minutes ago their measures. They're reacting very quickly. They're very sensitive to what's happening, and unfortunately, it's also because this is not our first time. I mean, we've played in this movie before. I think both the governments were ready, had different scenarios. So now they both announced different measures that if you put them all together, and we're still analyzing the ones that were announced by the federal government, but it's a combination of programs with loans, and also non-reimbursable helps tools, but also measures to keep employees at work, which is very important as well. So now the government of Canada has just introduced a $7.5 billion package of new and enhanced measures to protect Canadian and Quebec workers and businesses. So we'll have to keep analyzing the different details.
So is this maybe an opportunity here? I mean, there's the whole saying that every dark cloud has a silver lining, or if you want to go with a different cliche, there's the whole idea that the Chinese use the same word for crisis that they use for opportunity. I'm sure we've all heard those ones. Could this crisis provide an opportunity for Quebec and Canada as a whole to make their economies and their businesses more competitive and maybe less dependent on the U.S. market to begin with?
You're absolutely right. I mean, and there's a saying of let's never wait. We can't waste a good crisis. It's exactly that. I mean, the silver lining, although businesses are suffering right now, is we cannot waste this. We know what the solutions are. The government know what the solutions are to make our economy more resilient, and to provide businesses with the conditions they need to weather this crisis and emerge even stronger for possibly the next one. And that is giving them favorable conditions, business conditions related to tax rates, related to regulations, related to having, for example, a national workforce strategy, because we need to shift in the way we do things for them to be stronger.
Akil Aline here, filling in for Elias Makos on the Elias Makos Show. I'm chatting with Michel Yambias-Meunier, President and CEO of the Conseil du Patronat du Québec, the Quebec Employers Council, just responding to the whole trade war with the states and the federal government's response to it, the Quebec government's response to it, and the likely effect of those responses on the Quebec and Canadian economies. If you have some thoughts on this, we would love to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to text into our line at 514-790-0800. So, Madame Meunier, I understand one important industry here in Canada and also here in Quebec in particular is aluminum, and that it's particularly vulnerable to a lot of these tariffs. What is the level of concern, and what can the Quebec and Canadian governments do to tackle that particular industry, or the threats to that industry, rather?
Well, you said it's a major industry for Quebec, and it is also a major industry for the U.S. So because it's one of the industries where we're very integrated with our American partners. So again, the governments will need to be very sensitive to support this aluminum industry by the different programs. We can talk about the liquidity measures, the non-repayable programs to avoid increasing risk and debt for those companies, maybe tax relief, and again, support to help businesses retain employees, because we need to get through this crisis and make sure these companies and these aluminum companies you're referring to are able to stay alive.
And when it comes to Quebec in particular and the relationship of Quebec employers with their employees, is there anything that the private sector is doing here in Quebec to respond to this crisis and to try to shore up their employees' position? What kinds of things are you hearing from some of the members of the Conseil itself?
Well, the majority of the members we talk to, or the businesses we talk to, really want and commit as the best of their ability to retain their employees, because and retain that link and that relationship with the employee, because most of our Quebec companies have as obstacle number one recruiting and having access to qualified workers. So now that for the ones that are already working, the challenge and idea is to retain them as much as possible, because once this crisis is behind us, they will need to have them working and contributing to the company, to the economy as well. So the businesses I've been talking to want to retain and commit to do it as much as they can. But this is why in a crisis like this, they need the support from the government to retain those employees at work.
And are you hearing, does the Conseil hear from employees themselves directly? I understand you represent employers across the province of Quebec, but do you have your finger on the pulse at all, directly or indirectly, on what employees themselves are directly saying? Are they, fearing, are there a lot of people out there fearing for their jobs in response to this, or are they fearing increases in the cost of living, that sort of thing?
Well, indirectly, we do have a contact with them, but it's across the employers, of course. This uncertainty affects us all. It's not only, the business owners, but also, of course, employees and citizens. And this uncertainty and these tariffs, these 50% tariffs, are not only impacting the sectors that are targeted with those tariffs. They're impacting the whole economy, because it creates this level of uncertainty for everyone, because even for investment, we've seen a lot of setback in investments. We've seen job loss, not only in the sectors that were directly targeted. So yes, it does create uncertainty amongst many, many sectors.
And very quickly, are you optimistic going forward? Optimistic or pessimistic, especially over the short term, the next few months?
It's a very tough question. We were optimistic 72 hours ago, or just before the decision that we saw on Saturday morning. But at this point, I think we're at the peak of this crisis, and hopefully we'll see soon, a channel of negotiation that is opened again, but we cannot rush into negotiating a bad deal. And I think there's consensus around that.
Michel Yambias-Meunier, President and CEO of the Conseil du Patronat du Québec, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, Akil Aline here, filling in for Elias Makos on the Elias Makos Show. Coming up, what does the future look like in Côte Saint-Luc, a growing municipality, and what that means? But first, let's check out the news.
This newscast is brought to you by Renovco. Renovco does it all, including plumbing. From renovations to plumbing, trust one team. Call Renovco today or visit renovcoplumbing.com.
Wayfair's Labor Day clearance is on now. Right now at Wayfair, you can get up to 70% off everything home. Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 7th at wayfair.ca.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
Or the free iHeartRadio app.
Stories impacting Montrealers. News impacting Montreal. The Elias Makos Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Akil Aline here, filling in for Elias Makos on the Elias Makos Show. Right now, what is the future of Côte Saint-Luc? 35%. That is how much the city of Côte Saint-Luc expects to see its population increase over the next 2 decades. And this, by the way, is in a city that has a population currently of about 35,000 people. About 35,000 people living in Côte Saint-Luc right now, and it expects its population to jump by around 35% over the next 20 years. So how is the city going to manage that jump in terms of housing and facilities and infrastructure and things like that? Joining us to shed some light on that is David Tordjman, Mayor of Côte Saint-Luc. Mr. Tordjman, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Much appreciated. So, wow, I understand that after the last few years hasn't seen much housing construction in Côte Saint-Luc, you guys are expecting quite a lot more people to be living in the neighborhood or in the town over the next couple of decades. Overall, is this something that's welcome?
Well, to be fair, the master plan that we've finally moved forward with is it's a long-term plan. So there will be a net increase in population in the city, but obviously it's not going to be in year one. There's developments that are going to take 10 to 15 years. And so we'll see a significant increase in some areas of the city, but it's going to be over a 10 to 15 year period, depending on obviously many factors. But the master plan being passed is definitely a huge step forward for the city, and it opens up doors for developers and our residents as well.
Mayor Tordjman, the man with the master plan. So can you give us a sense of what this master plan consists of, especially when it comes to things like housing, infrastructure, and so on? What do you plan to do?
Right. Well, the master plan is a vision for the city. We want to see a proper development in different areas of the city. Now, our malls, we have 3 major malls in the city, and the dynamics have changed. The needs of the population have changed, and the reality is some of these centers, instead of having parking lots, will have commercial on the ground floor, residential above, like we see in other parts of the city and across the country. But we're also making sure that it's not just high density, but living space and places where people can live, work, and shop, go for coffee, go for ice cream, have those centers that are revitalized. We're lacking those areas in Côte Saint-Luc, and people go outside of Côte Saint-Luc to get to the restaurants and those sort of living areas. And we're going to see more of that in our city centers. So the revitalization and ensuring that we have more affordable homes for the younger families that are just starting out. Those are key elements that we made sure are integrated in this master plan.
So I hear that part of the construction is going to be driven by the demolition of some of the well-known shopping malls in Côte Saint-Luc, the Carey Square, Quartier Cavendish, formerly known as Cavendish Mall, the Côte Saint-Luc Shopping Center. I mean, personally, that brings up a lot of mixed feelings for me because I have fond memories of some of those places from my childhood. But but is that the case? Like, all of these facilities going to be torn down and replaced with what?
I also loved all of these malls. I grew up in many of them as you did, but the reality is the dynamics have changed. And what we're going to see is a little bit of what we see in other parts, like I mentioned, where there's an IGA on the ground floor, and then above that there's residents. We're going to see more of those kinds of living areas. On Westbury, there's the apartment buildings, and on the ground floor there's restaurants and coffee shops, and that kind of nature of living areas is what we're going to see. So it will be a change, and it's an evolution. I feel. I think our residents, both seniors and young families, will appreciate that kind of change. But obviously, with change comes concern, and we're going to make sure that the construction is done in a phased approach. That way, our residents can be integrated into those changes.
Akil Aline here, filling in for Elias Mackos on the Elias Mackos Show this morning. I'm chatting with David Tordjman, Mayor of Côte Saint-Luc, about the growth of the city's population that's anticipated in the next generation or so, the next couple of decades, and how the city plans to respond to it. So, Mayor Tordjman, what about housing? All right. Obviously, housing, and especially housing affordability, is a major issue here and seemingly everywhere else around the world, or at least on this continent these days. So I understand a lot of new housing is going to be built. Is the city taking any steps to try to make sure that as much of that housing as possible is affordable housing?
No, absolutely. So, an increased stock of housing will assist in affordability. We want to make sure that the seniors that are aging out of their homes have a place to go within Côte Saint-Luc that's affordable, and they can have an area that has all of the services that they've grown up with and have developed over the years of really building the city of Côte Saint-Luc. So we want to make sure that they have a place to go, but we also want to make sure that young families are attracted to Montreal and have a place to buy either a condo or a townhouse and move into smaller homes or a larger home if they can afford it. There is also an integration of affordable housing with in the Carey Square. They're the ones that are the sort of most ready, and we're looking to integrate affordable low-income housing within the complexes that they're going to build. So we will ensure that affordability it's a key component of the overall master plan.
I understand the city held these public information sessions with your residents last spring. What kind of feedback did you get to your master plan?
There's always a level of concern, and traffic is a concern, and affordability is a concern, and we've addressed all of those. We even had an information session just before passing the master plan, and I'd say overall the acceptability and the understanding by residents that change is a part of what's happening, but the change will bring positive things, and their implication and their ideas, their thoughts have all been integrated in this master plan. So we really took care to listen to our residents and really look forward to the next 20 years to make sure that what we do, the changes we integrate in the city, are for the best interest of our residents.
Mayor David Tordjman of Côte Saint-Luc, thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you so very much. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Likewise. Akil Aline filling in for...
Wayfair's Labor Day clearance is on now. Right now at Wayfair, you can get up to 70% off everything home. Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 7th at wayfair.ca.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio. Hosted by Brian Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll.
We're coming to get you!
One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all.
Brian Adams Radio.
I'm coming back to you.
Now available on the free iHeartRadio app.
Hey everybody, how are you tonight? Sounds great.
Details. Breaking news. Considered.
The
Elias Macko Show.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Akil Aline here, filling in for Elias Mackos. As you know, the federal government's press conference where they're announcing their responses to the trade war is ongoing, and question period is happening right now, so we're going to go to that.
I hope you'll stick around for many questions from my colleagues today, as always. But to start with, today you are bringing in retaliatory tariffs. You are not bringing in any export levies on Canadian energy or Canadian potash, two areas that are critical to the U.S. economy. I'm wondering why you're not using those levers now, and if you might use them in the future.
Well, let me start. We have always said from the get-go that we would be strategic, proportionate, and that we would respond in a way that serves Canada's best interest. What you see today is a number of tariffs, and we have been consulting broadly. I think you heard that from Minister Joly as well, and we have done that for a long time. You know, sadly, we have been in this trade conflict for quite some time, so we know the products that needs to be tariffed. We have been consulting, for example, with the steel industry. We've been consulting with Hajdu Québec. We have been consulting with manufacturers across the nation. And what is different and what you have heard today is that the new tariff imposed by the U.S. administration is going to be disproportionately affecting small and medium-sized businesses. That's why we're here today, and that's why we have decided to put I would say, a very substantial support package. We're talking about $7.5 billion to support workers and to support industry. But you have to get back to first principle. This is about protecting a Canadian industry impacted by U.S. tariff. And I've said it yesterday, this is about the level playing field. We want to make sure that companies like the one we're here this morning can be selling and be competitive in the Canadian market. That's what's driving our response today. That's what's going to drive our response for the days and the weeks and the months ahead.
Can I?
Sure.
I think when we're looking at, first, the Prime Minister has said that everything was on the table yesterday, and at the same time, this is, we think for now, the most strategic approach. Because when we're looking at the counter tariffs, we're looking first at protecting the businesses that are affected here, because if they were exporting to the U.S., we need to make sure that the competitors don't have access to the Canadian market in a better way than their own, products. And that's why the retailers need to show that the product is from Canada. For a second, we're also targeting products that will target states in the U.S. And so we're being wise and strategic to put political pressure. And that's why we think it's the right thing to do right now. And that's why I think François-Philippe's approach is just the perfect one for now.
Yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford called the president a loser. He called him the king of bankruptcies and used some other colorful language to describe the president. I'm wondering if you think that hurt the relationship and if anyone in the federal government asked him to tone it down.
Listen, we have seen this for a long time. Minister Joly and I have been both Foreign Minister of Canada. We have been engaging with the U.S. administration for a long, long time. And one thing I've learned is not to comment on every remarks that is being made on either side of the border. My job, our job here this morning, is to fight for Canada, is to fight for our workers, is to fight for industries, is to bring the support to make sure that we give them a bridge when we have more stability in our economy and certainly in specific sectors that are affected by the U.S. tariff. That's what Canadians are expecting from us. They're expecting each and every one of us and the Prime Minister to stand up for Canada. That's what we did in our trade negotiation, to pivot to make sure that we support the workers behind, the families, the communities across our nation. And at the same time, and I think that's been mentioned by my colleague, Plan A has always been to build Canada, to remove interprovincial trade barrier, to make sure that we diversify. I'm going to be hosting the Finance Minister of India just tomorrow, 5th largest economy in the world, 1.4 billion people that want to trade with Canada, and at the same time to make sure that we do big things in this country. This country is a nation that does big things. Just think about Churchill Falls we did recently. That's another James Bay. You know, a whole generation of people have dreamed about that. 20,000 jobs. You're talking about 70 billion of investment. Look at what the Prime Minister announced yesterday with my colleagues, Mr. Joly and others, about shipbuilding. We're investing in Canada. We're investing in Canadians. We are building our country strong. That's the response that Canada needs to have. Sir.
Hi.
There's a bit of passion in that. I could see that in your eyes.
Cormac McSweeney with City News. The Prime Minister briefed opposition leaders today on the state of talks and these measures here, but Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is out again demanding that the government release the draft text of the deal that was on the table that you walked away from, saying Canadians have a right to see what you walked away from. Also demanding a recall of Parliament as soon as possible so that this can be debated, and he's calling for more tax relief. He's got a list of different tax measures he wants you to take action on. So can you respond, will you release the draft text? Why or why not? Will you recall Parliament? Why or why not? And could there be more tax relief on the way?
Wait, you have 3 questions in one. I'm just looking at your colleagues. They're learning. The first thing, listen, this is probably the most publicly advertised negotiation of a trade agreement I could recall. You know, you've seen a number of media briefing. Minister LeBlanc has been out there with Janice Charette, our trade negotiator, briefing journalists, briefing Canadians at every step of the way, the Prime Minister as well. I can remember one trade negotiation which got more coverage than the one we're going through now. So in terms of transparency, I think Canadians have been able to follow that even on a daily basis. When it comes to recalling Parliament, listen, our job is to do the important work that Canadians elected us to do, is to put the measures in place, make sure we consult. We're consulting broadly with Canadians. I had the finance minister's meeting yesterday. The Prime Minister talked to the Premier, Minister Joly, Minister Salmon, Mr. Hajdu. We're crisscrossing the country, engaging. You saw the union leaders in front of us. We are talking to every Canadian, every stakeholders, because this is our moment. This is a moment to stand up, and we're willing to listen to whomever may have ideas in the opposition to say, how can we perfect what we're putting forward. This is a Team Canada moment. And the last thing in terms of tax measure, listen, we already have probably the most competitive set of measures in the G7, but we're always looking at ways to support workers, to support businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses, as we're looking at this particular period. I was talking to the Confederation.
Akil Aline here, filling in for Elias Makos on the Elias Makos Show. You just heard Ministers François-Philippe Champagne. He's the Federal Minister of Revenue, National Revenue and Finance, as well as other federal cabinet ministers like Mélanie Joly, Patty Hajdu, and Evan Solomon, answering questions from reporters at towards the close of their federal press conference, announcing the Carney government's responses to the trade war with the United States. So just to recap briefly what Minister Champagne in particular announced, he said, we stand united for Canada. We're facing a trade war we didn't choose, but we're going to meet the moment together. He announced a $7.5 billion package in response to U.S. tariffs. Industries targeted include steel, aluminum, home electronics, paper, and so on. Auto tariffs, he announced, will remain in place. Canada is going to impose retaliatory tariffs of 15, 25, or 50% on $28 billion worth of U.S. imports. During the press conference, Minister Champagne stated that
Wayfair's Labor Day clearance is on now. Right now at Wayfair, you can get up to 70% off everything home. Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 7th at wayfair.ca.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
The newest tracks. Let's go. New music. And the next big thing.
Always on the new music first.
Your first place to hear it all.
'Cause you gon' like it, love it, wanna play it twice. Playing now.
iHeart New Music. Your digital station for brand new drops, fresh finds, and tomorrow's bangers.
I think we need something new.
Discover iHeart New Music. Always fresh, always first. Stream now on the free iHeartRadio app.
The biggest power we have is our buying power. We can and must choose to buy Canadian. So those are some highlights of the federal government's response. On the next, coming up next, we have the Vasi Capello Show at 2 p.m. It's Montreal Now. And if you missed the Big Five this morning, it's available on iHeartRadio and all your podcast apps. On the next Elias Macko Show, we start things off with the Big Five. And we're live from 9 to noon. We've got Traffic Court, where Montrealers share their unjust traffic violations. If you've recently been pulled over, received a parking ticket, you feel it was unjust, Elias, well, I will consider your listeners' cases. So thanks so much for joining us today, and we will move on to the news.
Hey, I'm Ruby Carr, the host of the podcast Encore. Check out our brand new episodes featuring music from the show that everyone is reheating as we speak, Heated Rivalry. Join me as I go behind the songs that brought Shane and Elia together. I'll tell you the stories of Feist, My Moon, My Man, Wolf Parade's I'll Believe in Anything, and Tattoo's All the Things She Said, and how they all became a part of this global phenomenon. Stream Encore on iHeartRadio, Crave, or wherever you get your podcasts.